Hey there, I'm John Cox with Board Game Geek, and today I have Nathan McNair and Nyctophobia. Who designed this one?
So Nyctophobia is designed by Catherine Stipple. She's a 20-year-old college student.
Oh.
Ran into this game at Unpub last year. Saw these guys sitting on the table. My first interaction with the game actually was a group of people sitting down to play it. And I walked in. I was like, I want to see what this game is because it has these glasses. I don't know what the glasses are. And they were just random people that had like unpacked the box trying to figure out how to play it on their own. And then she showed up. So I guess the big reveal is in Nyctophobia, and we'll get back to some of her story in a second. Nyctophobia, up to 4 players are hunted that are wandering around the forest trying to get to the car and survive. One player is the hunter who is trying to kill them. I'm actually going to switch these two. Not that anyone else knows what this board layout is, but I got it wrong. And the hunted players are all going to be wearing these.
Okay.
Which are blackout shades.
I can't see anything.
Right. And that's the idea. So what the game is ultimately at the start of the game, the hunter player, who's going to have a deck of cards that controls what they do, is going to announce one of the 4 primary directions that the car, which is this piece here, is located in. And the whole game is set up to be tactile.
Okay.
So that you can tell what's going on purely through feel because you can't see.
Ah.
So I'm going to give you one of the primary directions. And of course, in a house, you would say north, and north is towards the kitchen, and south is towards the back door.
Sure.
Kind of help people orient where they are because they can't see.
Of course.
And as the only player who can see, I'm going to be trying to prevent you from escaping, but also kind of running a little bit of as a DM for the game as well. So Catherine's uncle, who she plays games with a lot of the time, is non-sighted. Mm-hmm. And so they play board games with him. And when you're playing board games with somebody who can't see the board, you have to give them a lot of spatial information. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of things that we take for granted about spatial awareness, spatial relativity between things. And you have to describe in great detail what the map layout looks like, who is where on the board and what's going on, so that you could create a mental picture of what the board would look like. Mm-hmm. And what she had the idea is, what would it be like to make everybody else play games and experience the world very briefly in the same way that a non-sighted person would, which is to take away their sight, take away their immediate spatial orientation based on sight. Mm-hmm. And so the way the game actually plays is fascinating. I mean, it sounds like a gimmick and it's a nice elevator pitch. You play the game blind.
Sure.
But the game's actually a really clever game experience. Because on your turn, the hunter is going to put a player's hand here who can't see, and you're going to be able to feel one space in all directions from where you are, and then make a decision where to move, and then move your piece there. Then you could feel again, move again. If you hit trees, you have to stop feeling. And you're going to start building a map in your head of where you've been. And I know I want to go north because that's the direction the hunter gave me. Mm-hmm. And you're going to start talking to the other players. And you're going to tell them, hey, I think I'm on the eastern edge of the map. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's some trees to my west and my north, but there was some space this way. And then you're going to move and you're going to start talking about where you've been. And inevitably what will happen is you'll start bumping into other players. And then you're going to start orienting your maps together to uncover where collectively the group has been and how you found the car yet. I'll start saying things like, hey, Eric, ran into the hunter. The hunter was to the west. Don't go to the west. We need to kind of move this direction, we think. Mm-hmm. And so early on, it's this sort of exploratory game of trying to figure out where you are and orient yourself around the map, meeting up with your friends, figuring out where you are, where you haven't been, where you think the car must be. And very often, it'll start saying things like, hey, 4 moves ago, there was a path to the east I didn't take. Let me go back there and see if that gets me to the car. Uh-huh. And you're going to start working together to develop a picture collectively between all of you of what you think this looks like. And as the hunter, watching people do this is phenomenally rewarding. Because you'll just see somebody be right here, and all they have to do is go there and then feel that, and they will win the game, and they will just keep going the wrong way. And it is a really satisfying thing to watch happen.
And that's the win condition, just one person.
One person finds the car, and everyone survives around. So everyone has 2 hit points to start the game. If anyone dies, you lose. The hunter is driven by some rules. If there's noise on the board, you always have to move towards noise. Mm-hmm. Noise is created. There are these rock tokens that you pick up if you feel them. You could throw a rock wherever the rock lands. So you tell the hunter, hey, I want to throw the rock south. He'll throw the rock south. It'll hit this. Noise token will come out. I don't have it out here. Put it on the board, and the hunter has to move towards that.
Okay.
If there's no noise on the board, they have to move towards the nearest player. hunted player that's closest to them. If there's some confusion about what that is, it's their choice. And generally speaking, when there is no noise on the board, they get kind of normal movements, like move 2 spaces, move 3 spaces.
Sure.
They're card driven. When there is noise on the board, it activates better cards or better abilities on the bottom of the card. Things like, let's say this is the situation that arises. There's a card that allows him to use his axe to chop down trees. He is now adjacent to this player. On a player's turn, at any time that you touch the hunter, you take damage. So if you think the hunter is near you, you can try to just get out of there without feeling him and escape. And what it does, and this is something that our game test groups and our development groups, which was headed by John Gilmore, has been running the dev on the game, have consistently said is it's the only horror-themed game that's actually scary. Because you can't see and you don't know what's going on, and you're really, really nervous at all times that you're going to feel this smooth guy.
Be very careful with where your fingers are.
Yeah, and it's a question of like, if you think he's not near, you kind of want to feel around, so you get more information. But the risk of getting more information is that you take damage, and if somebody's already got damage, then it turns into an interesting game of there's an action where you can hide. You flip your piece upside down, and you can't talk, but you can't take damage at that point either. So you can no longer communicate with players, but you can't be damaged while you're hidden. So it turns into an interesting game if you think somebody's near the hunter and you think they're about to die. Other players start making noise. He hides, and you try to draw the hunter off. So it turns into this really interesting cooperative experience where you don't have perfect information, and it turns into a game play experience that is really, really unique. And I don't think it's often that you see a board game that gives you a brand new experience.
For sure.
Because, there's great games out there, but very often they're very similar or iterative, or it feels like this game plus this game. When you play this game, it's not going to feel like anything you've ever played. It's going to give you a different perspective on the world than you've ever seen, which is, what does it feel like for half an hour to lose one of my senses? And to try to do something that's not a gimmick, but an actual mental exercise while down one sense. And it's a really, really cool game.
How often would you say the hunter wins
I have
versus...
stats on this. The hunted win 42% of the time with this deck of cards.
Okay.
So it's a little bit less than half the time you'll win. As players get better, they win more often.
That makes sense.
There's a second deck of cards that comes in the game, which is a warlock. Molly likes to call him sort of evil Doctor Strange. Much more advanced, much lower win rates. He gets to do things like rotate the board.
Oh my goodness.
90 degrees. Flip 3 of the trees 90 degrees to start changing the map around. And so you think you've got a picture of the board, and then he changes it, and you have to... It just adds a layer. It makes it much, much harder. Each deck has 2 maps for it in the rulebook. We have a QR code and a website that's going to have 2 more up at launch. And then we're going to continue to put maps out so that you don't have to worry about somebody who's memorized. It shouldn't really be much of an issue anyway, because the different orientations of the map, plus the hunter can change the maps around.
Yeah.
There's different car starting locations, different hunter starting locations. So even if you guess the map layout, you don't actually know where the car is in that scenario. But even so, there's going to be so many maps that there won't be a problem with that.
Great. Well.
Yep. So this will be out at Gen Con this year.
Okay.
$40 SRP.
$40. Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Cool. Thank you.